Hi, Gary Stearman, coming to you from the studios at Prophecy Watchers. In studio with me today is a very close friend. His name is Richard Shaw, and he is a filmmaker. Richard, welcome back to Prophecy Watchers.
Hey, Gary, thanks for having me.
Richard, he loves Israel. He has filmed a lot in Israel. We're going to be talking about some of the work he's done there, but let's go back a bit. You filmed the Watchers series, and many of the people who have joined us right now will be familiar with the Watchers series.
Yeah, we worked on Watchers for about 8 years. I was the director of the series and put it together, and it was a lot of fun. And the stuff that's in there is all true, you know. So it it was always kind of like a privilege to be able to do it. At least I felt like that.
Yeah, the supernatural side of Bible study.
It is, yeah, and the high-tech part of the Bible too.
And we need to investigate those things. We talk about prophecy. We sometimes talk about edgy subjects that are out there a little farther than we usually go in church, shall we say. But all of those things are very relevant to what's happening today because we're living in the last days. And speaking of the last days, Richard, that brings me to the subject on your heart, and that is Israel. You've spent a lot of time in Israel with Israeli authorities, with spokespersons in Israel, and I have my Bible open here to Ezekiel 37, where it says in verse 25, "And they shall dwell in the land that I have given unto Jacob my servant, wherein your fathers have dwelt." Well, I could read a lot more. But that's just one of many, many, many places that talk about Israel's destiny. They are coming back to the land. There's no doubt about it. They're going to end up there. And I know you believe the same thing.
Yeah, well, there's other passages calling it the everlasting covenant.
Yeah.
That this is, you know, the Jewish land. So it's kind of like, okay.
And you know, one of the things that I find astounding is that people sort of ignore Israel. Now, recently, when Donald Trump had the U.S. Embassy moved from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem, that got a lot of attention for a few days. When there are outbreaks of various wars in Israel, that gets a lot of attention, and then the attention just quickly wanes away, and suddenly Israel is not in the news anymore. But the reason I wanted to talk to you today is because you have done some filming there. In fact, we're going to offer you a DVD a bit later. Some of the filming you've done covers the backstory in Israel. And let's talk about what's really happening behind the scenes in Israel today.
Well, there's a lot going on. I mean, from an archaeology standpoint, there's at least 100 major excavations going on in Israel as we speak.
Never hear about them.
Yeah, you never hear about it. I've been to some of the ones that aren't tourist attractions. You know, there's like the King David excavation and all that most people get to go to, but I've been to the ones in other places that I know are happening in East Jerusalem, on the edge of Silwan. It's a little town where Arabs and Israelis live together. But underneath that town, there's an excavation going on of major proportions, and they're finding all sorts of things. I mean, the level of detail that they spend doing this is beyond. I mean, they have conveyor belts in the ceiling, hooks that travel over your head. They're always in motion, and they hang bags of dirt on it to carry that dirt out as they dig it out. And then that's carried by trucks to another location where it's washed and sifted, and that's how they find like coins from 68 AD and things like that.
And you're talking about Silwan, which is across the Kidron Valley from the Old City.
Right, it's right next to the Old City.
If you've ever gone to the Old City and eaten in an outdoor restaurant, you're looking at Silwan. In fact, that's the strange thing about Jerusalem. All these biblical stories are taking place within a very small area.
Yeah, very small. In fact, I wanted to go, I had a really great Arab cab driver one time that I was in Israel, and I said, I want you to take me all the way up to the top of Silwan, because I thought that was the wildest looking city I'd ever seen. And I said, I don't want to go to the touristy places. I want to go to the places where you guys go. So we drove way up there, and we got stopped by the Silwan police, stopped us with machine guns. And and they were all talking in Arabic, and I'm kind of like cracking up because I had a GoPro camera on the hood of my friend's Mercedes filming this whole thing. And we found out that there were Palestinians stoning cars a block ahead of us. So they were stopping us so we wouldn't get our windshield smashed in.
There are always various levels of upheaval, revolution, confrontation going on in Jerusalem. Everybody thinks he owns Jerusalem.
Right.
The Jordanians, of course, they have dibs on the Temple Mount, and other factions feel that they own various parts of Jerusalem.
Sure.
And yet Jerusalem is referred to as God's city. And let me just flip my Bible over here to Zechariah 12. Where it says, "Behold, I will make Jerusalem a cup of trembling unto all the people round about when they shall be in siege, both against Judah and against Jerusalem." That pretty much describes what's going on right now.
Well, if you go in through the Damascus Gate, and there's a kind of like a tourist area, and it's Solomon's quarry, where they dug all the stones out to build a temple. Okay, and that's still there, and it's all lit up nicely, and you can walk through that. But underneath all of that is the Zedekiah Cave Complex, and it's massive and huge. I mean, this goes back a couple decades ago, and all that is still in existence, but most people don't know about it. But there's all these amazing excavations going on in Israel, including places that we're uncertain of, where there might be tunnels and cave systems that have not been explored. And all of that is very interesting. What they're doing now, they're finding the actual flood control systems that connect from underneath the edge of Silwan all the way into Jerusalem. And they're still intact after 2,000 years.
And there have been rumors for years and years and years. There's a long tunnel from Jerusalem down toward the Dead Sea area, which is what?
There's
How
a
many
legend
miles?
that there's like, I think it's like 22 kilometers long.
Yeah.
There's a legend that there are in ancient texts that say this is a tunnel that exists. It's big enough you can ride a horse carrying a lance in it. There's all sorts of really interesting things about that. Would love to find something like that.
And Richard, with his drone and with his various cameras, and he's got some professional equipment you would not believe, films these things, and that's how we're able to show you some of the pictures that we have from time to time. But what I want to talk about for a moment is your coverage of the May 2018 uprising in Gaza.
Right.
And the story, I think, there is the scarcity of true news coverage of what actually went on.
We just get terrible news coverage about Israel. It's always anti-Israel, incredibly negative, and I don't know, I'd say 90% of the time it's flat wrong. On what they're saying. And it's almost as if they want it to be that way. They don't want to really tell people, Israel's doing anything good or anything like that. And so I just had it. So I knew that Dan Gordon was going there, and Dan is an old friend of mine. He's a movie playwright. He's done a lot of movies, everything from working with Denzel Washington on The Hurricane, that really famous film, and to current stuff that he's working on now. I can't even mention all of them, but he just finished the movie last November, Let There Be Light. That was Dan's script, and he helped produce that film, and it did really well. So anyway, Dan is also works in PR for the IDF in Israel and can speak Hebrew. So a lot of times he'll say, I have my combat boots with me in case they need me, when he's even on shooting a movie or whatever. So I said, well, look, when you get back this time, I'd like to interview you, and he agreed. So there's no budget to do any of this stuff. We just do it on Skype because that's the easiest thing where we can do something immediate. And Dan told me what was really going on at the Gaza Strip and what the riots that were occurring. And at one point, there were 40,000 Palestinians pushed up against the fence into Israel, trying to break through with only 2,000 IDF soldiers. And so how does the media portray this? They'll say, well, 60 Palestinians that were protesting their living conditions were shot by Israeli soldiers. I mean, that's like such an inaccurate account of the whole situation that I couldn't take it anymore. So let's do something that really shows what's going on there.
Yeah, the news is not only factually inaccurate, it is slanted away from Israel. And that's just the facts. That's the way it's been ever since Israel became a state. I want to show you a bit of a preview of what Richard has filmed about Gaza. In fact, we're going to offer you a DVD called The Truth About Gaza, but let's just take a quick look at some of his work.
Israel, ancient, the birthplace of Judaism and Christianity. Gaza, a failed state run by a terrorist organization called Hamas, an Islamic extremist group funded by Iran. What about the Palestinians? In 2005, Israel kicked out its own people to give them Gaza. Instead of peace, they got war. The issues are complex, but you won't believe what Hamas is really doing to its own people until you watch The Truth About Gaza, now playing on Vimeo. A 20-minute short film by Richard Shaw. They targeted a school bus.
They targeted a yellow school bus.
بقول له قدم بخش الولد الصغير يعني تنضحك عليه بكلمتين شكلوا لجنة هم وحطوا كم من واحد انهم.
We actually had somebody come up to the fence and ask one of the soldiers to shoot him.
And having seen the way Richard shoots film, I got to tell you, I'm using the old-fashioned word film, although there's no film anymore. The way you shoot pictures is just phenomenal. You are an artist, I think.
Oh, thank you, Gary. Some of the footage about on the internal parts of Gaza was sent to me by Jonathan Cornricas, who is in charge of PR for the IDF. And I got in touch with him through Dan, who had his contact information, and he sent me a whole lot of stuff that no one ever really sees unless they peruse this on the internet, and some of it's not available on the internet. So it really showed. I thought what was really great, there were two clips which I thought were really great. One of them was one of the Palestinians complaining about Hamas and what's really going on and how tired everybody are of Hamas. And the other was a group of Hamas terrorists trying to break through the fence and yelling Allahu Akbar, and really kind of scary looking. I mean, imagine if you lived across the street from that.
If you really want to get a sense of what's going on, The Truth About Gaza, it's a 21-minute DVD, electrifying in its presentation. And we're offering this to you for $15 of free shipping anywhere in the U.S. Of course, go to prophecywatchers.tv, click on the online bookstore, or you'll see the offer on the website. But apprise yourself of the news, the real news, not the, as it's being called today, fake news about Gaza. This 21 minutes, I think, will change the way you look at Israel. I really wanted to offer Richard's film because words fail. You just have to see it. He speaks through pictures, through actions. He's a natural cinematographer with years and years and years of experience, and he's got a way of capturing the audience. It's called The Truth About Gaza, 21 minutes long, the 21 minutes that just may change your life, the way you look at Israel. What are you working on now?
Well, we're working on some projects that we're going to reveal at the October conference.
Speaking of the October conference, second annual Blessed Hope Prophecy Conference, October 12th through 14th, you're going to be there, and you'll probably have a book table, and you'll be able to offer some of your work there.
I hope so. That would be wonderful.
And at the very least, if you want to meet and talk with Richard Shaw, you'll have the opportunity to do so at the conference. Any final words? What are you up to these days?
Well, I wanted to give you a little update on what's actually going on in Gaza, because I just found this out last night. And what's transpiring right now is that Israel had to hit Gaza pretty hard because they were sending these fire kites out and destroying thousands of acres of farmland in Israel. Plus they had, since the beginning of this year, Hamas has fired over 350 rockets into Israel. People don't know that. It's never on the news. People don't know that's happening.
It's happening now.
It's happening now. Well, not so much now, but a couple weeks ago, 70 rockets were fired in one day into Israel.
Well, that's what I call now. A
That's
couple of
like
weeks ago. That's
huge.
current. And it's not in the news.
And what's interesting, too, that people don't know, that Israel and Egypt are working together to create peace. They have a great relationship there, and Israel's motto is quiet for quiet. So if Hamas doesn't do anything to attack Israel, then Israel won't do anything to attack Hamas. Israel isn't looking for war. They want peace, and the last thing they want to do is take over Gaza again. That's kind of like a misnomer. People believe they want to go in there and kill everybody, and that's just not the case. So Mahmoud Abbas is in charge of the Palestinian Authority. He's the elderly gentleman with the white hair and hates Israel. But I think most of the Palestinians are tired of Hamas and their brutal rule of Gaza. And so Mahmoud Abbas is cutting off all the funding to Hamas. And the funding comes from the UN and international communities. And some of the funding has come in a clandestine fashion from Iran. Like in the film, you can see like there's bags of cement that say from Iran on them, that have been donated.
And again, if you really want to see the truth about Gaza, this DVD is something you need to watch. It will open your eyes. By the way, Richard is known for one thing. Ever since I've known you, at least, you're always wearing a baseball cap. It's the hallmark.
Well, this time I've got like the specially approved Prophecy Watchers hat, so I'm wearing it proudly today.
Well, I offered him a Prophecy Watchers baseball cap before we started shooting, and he accepted, and I'm very happy about that. But wherever you see Richard, you will see a baseball cap. Even at the conference, I'm sure you'll be wearing your baseball cap.
Yeah, it's kind of my look.
Well, Godspeed to you, and I know you've got projects in the works right now, and you're helping us with some film work while you're here.
It's a pleasure.
And it's always a pleasure to talk to you. Richard Shaw, a very gifted Christian filmmaker, and his work is, well, what can I say, just absolutely amazing. Come back and see us soon.
Look forward to it.
I'm Gary Stearman. Hey, you keep watching. We are. Thanks for joining us on Prophecy Watchers. You can find us on the web at prophecywatchers.com, where you can sign up for our free email newsletter. In the meantime, keep watching, everybody, and we'll see you soon.